And I have with me Klaus Baader. He is Chief Economist at Societe Generale. Klaus, welcome. Thank you very much for coming on the Pulse this morning. If we look first at that workers' demand, the 6%, it is a big demand, but of course we've seen all of this growth happening in Germany. So is there the feeling that those profits ought to be filtered down to workers?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, of course, a 6% demand does indeed sound eye-watering, as it was called in your report, but I think an agreement somewhere between 2 and 3% would be what the union would be expecting. And I feel that Germany has enough of a, at least in general, I'm not a steel sector specialist, but in general, Germany has a competitiveness buffer that it can use. And as your report rightly pointed out, wages have declined and disposable income growth for nearly a decade has been virtually zero. And the share of overall wages in national income has declined a lot. So I think these increases in wages that unions are demanding are realistic, and they will, of course, put German domestic demand on a firmer footing than it has been for a long time.
Indeed. Now, after those two huge periods of growth led by exports, the first and second quarter, we are likely to see a slowdown, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Germany grew at a 9% quarterly annualized rate in the second quarter. Every child knows that
Do they think they are China?
Exactly. This is not anywhere near the potential growth rate. So it is clearly going to slow down. But let me slightly correct you in your question. In the second quarter, yes, net exports contributed positively, but they were by no means the main contributor. There was a big push on domestic demand. There are other indications, too, that German domestic demand is reviving. Now, let's stay realistic. German domestic demand is not going to grow at 3%, but it can grow at 1.5–2% underlying growth rate. We expect for the overall economy growth this year of about 3.2%, and still next year 2%. Germany also is, of course, not suffering from the fiscal austerity pressure. So Germany ought to be growing more robustly, and that is definitely good news for the rest of the euro area.
It's interesting. We talk about consumer demand, lack of consumer demand in Germany. But of course, the very fact that the consumers weren't highly leveraged and spending a lot means there is no kind of overhanging debt for Germany in terms of consumers. So in fact, actually, do you think that although we're going to see a slowdown, the fundamentals are very strong?
Yes, I do. I do believe that the fundamentals are strong, that private consumption can clock up reasonable growth, nothing too exciting. But you're right in saying the household savings rates are high. German households are not highly leveraged. Germany, of course, never had a housing bubble and therefore has no bursting of a housing bubble and negative wealth effects in that way. But, still, we have to take also into consideration that German fiscal policy is actually quite expansionary in 2010. And that definitely helped growth, along with all the recovery and the rebound. That's going to change next year. There's also a story on exports. German exports have now effectively regained the pre-crisis levels. That means that this kind of momentum that comes from a recovery after a severe recession is now gradually getting lost. And so export growth is likely to slow as well to more in line with a longer-term potential rate of export growth, rather than the absolutely stunning growth rates that we've seen in this recovery.
Of course. Klaus Baader, thank you very much indeed for joining us.